Hello everyone and welcome to this Native DNA video. I am owner-operator Chris Lasakis, and today I would like to go over with you a little bit of information about the Choctaw population of Mississippi. So back in November of 2016, last year, UC Davis actually did a DNA study where they published information, allelic frequencies concerning 30 Native American tribes from Canada, United States, and Mexico. And one of those populations was the Choctaw of Mississippi. So really good thing to report to you is that we now have information from the Choctaw tribe of Mississippi that we can compare your DNA to and your results and give you back information concerning the likelihood of you matching the Choctaw population. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to go ahead and jump on in, and I'm going to show you. You can see there's 15 allelic frequencies here. The most likely matches for the 15 frequencies and 15 STRs, and we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you the results. So you can see the loci right here on the left, and then each pair of alleles per loci, per locus right here. So we're going to hit Find Ancestry, and I'm going to show you the results. This is really exciting stuff. So as you can expect, the Choctaw population obviously matches itself. It would only make sense that the DNA from the study would match the actual population. And so then after that, the Choctaw genome shows that there's European influence. And this Sardinia match, it could either be more recent, but I think it probably shows a genetic contribution to the Choctaw from long ago, either from the conquistadors to the Mediterranean region, both to the southeastern United States when the conquistadors came there, or also through Mexico, because we know that a lot of that occurred through that route as well. And then this next population, the Choctaw in Russia, that's probably just indicating an admixture with European DNA that's either probably more recent, over the last 100 years or so. And then we have Navajo. So this is the first pure population, or most, the first strongest pure population, or most likely pure population that we have. Of course, we know that in North America, there's been a lot of admixture, and so there's hardly any pure populations anymore, if any, actually. And then the Navajo population from Arizona, their DNA largely stems from Mexico. And so I've done studies on them and looked into their ancestry as well using this same method here. And Mexico comes up as number one. But what this is showing us is that the Choctaw have a strong Mexican connection, more than likely from the Valley of Mexico or Central Mexico. And I'll explain to you more about that in a moment. But the Navajo are a fascinating population in that when we look to study the genetics of a certain population, there's three things that we look for. We look at their linguistics, or their language. We look at their anthropology, which would be like their tools, their type of food, any kind of jewelry or stone tools or anything like that that they might have used in their day-to-day lives, and passed down through the generations to give us clues. And also we look at their DNA. Of course, now we have that available to us in the modern age. But those three things, linguistics, anthropology, and DNA. And the Navajo are an Athabascan speaking people. They speak the Athabascan language, whose root is Western Canada. And so we know that, at least in part, more than likely, just linguistically, the Navajo have roots back to Western Canada, to tribes like the Dog Rib. And I know for a fact that that's the case because through their DNA, there's strong indications of that. However, the bulk of their DNA is still from central Mexico and northern Mexico, places from Durango and Nayarit down to central Mexico and the federal district there, Mexico City. And so from that, we deduce that the Choctaw have a Mexican connection. And this Aymara and Mestizo further indicates that, because we know that from Mexico, as is the heart of all this, some people went to South America and some came to the southeastern United States. long ago, and that's why the Aymara and Mestizo from Bolivia population, why this population is registering, is that it's not that the Choctaw have direct ancestry from Bolivia, it's from central Mexico that they split off. Some went to Bolivia or Central South America, and some came up here to southeastern United States. So it's kind of by default or kind of stair-stepped and tiered in such a way that it's not direct. And so next we have the Muscogean population from Alabama, mixed with a European population, France there, again further indicating the mixed population of most Choctaw that are alive today are mixed with some European ancestry. And this Eskimo population from Alaska is fascinating. Now what I think this means is probably two things. It could mean that the Choctaw and the Eskimo population have a very similar admixture of European and Native American ancestry that are alive today. That's similar. And it could also mean, and probably means this as well, that they have a direct connection, that the Alaskan Native Americans were the fathers of modern day North American Indians further to the south, as the migration trail and sequence followed through the generations. So, and this Mestizo population from Hidalgo further confirms the Choctaw's connection to central Mexico. Another Muscogee, Alabama population. We'll just keep going down through the list. More Navajo, more Aymara from Bolivia. A direct Bolivia connection, or a direct Bolivia tribe, or just population. This one is probably a little less mestizo in origin, but I'd probably say that it's still 30 to 35% Native American, whereas this one here is probably going to be just close to pure 50-50, evenly divided. Let's keep going down the list. We see one from Peru, which as we know is a border country to Bolivia. Then the Athabascan speakers. As I mentioned, the Choctaw, or the Navajo people, are a Athabascan speaking group. And I keep mentioning Navajo because you can see they're the closest tribe related to the Choctaw in our database that now has, I believe we have 60 Native American populations. So this definitely says something. So if you've taken a DNA test of any kind and you've gotten Navajo, if you're from the southeastern United States and you have Navajo results coming up in your DNA report, you might want to strongly consider the fact that you might be Choctaw or Seminole. Possibly, I haven't been able to do the Seminole, or some Muscogean speaking language tribe, which, as we know, amongst the 5 civilized tribes, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Creek, and the Seminole are Muscogean speaking peoples, with the Cherokee, of course, being an Iroquois-based language family. So that's the breakdown there. And as you look further down the list, we see Valley of Mexico, as I mentioned. So that further confirms that. And then you start getting into some Canadian-based tribes mixed. This is an Ojibwe mixed with Mayo of Mexico, so a Western Mexican tribe again. So you can see that there's a connection to Canada, but it's far less than the connection to Central and Northern Mexico. So if I had to pinpoint one place that the Choctaw DNA came from, it looks like somewhere around Mexico City. And I'll show you something in a moment that even further confirms that. So if you know you're part Choctaw or Chickasaw, because remember, when I say that, remember that the oral history tradition, as well as further evidence, right? We have probably some anthropological evidence, is discussed by many, that and the DNA evidence now that suggests that there was one people that left Mexico long ago, probably during the Mississippian period, came up through Texas, probably along the Gulf Coast out of Mexico, followed through Louisiana and then up the Mississippi River Valley, and then split. There's some evidence that they also may have come from the Red River Valley along Texas-Oklahoma border and came east But either way, they made it into the southern Mississippi River Valley and split into two peoples, the Chickasaw and the Choctaw. So those two tribes are cousins, pretty much sisters of each other, siblings. So what happened then was then the people that were originally probably in that area probably had DNA from further north. The Indians probably more from Canada, the Great Plains type DNA, and maybe from the Great Lakes, similar to the Cherokee somewhat. And we know the Cherokee strongly match the Ojibwe population from Ontario. So with that in mind, you're going to start seeing a mix of the Mexican influx and also from the north, from Ontario and from the Great Lakes. So that's why that would be mixed that way, but you can see the vast bulk of all this is from Mexico. So that's at 15 STR markers. Now let's go up to the 21. Let's use our Pinnacle 3 calculator here. And you can see I've entered an additional 6 loci here, and I'm going to hit find frequencies and show you the results from this. And as you can see, it further confirms Navajo is still way up there, the first official tribe. And then this Nahua Octocpan, this is around Mexico City. So again, even further proof, running at a higher resolution, that the Choctaw people came from central Mexico. So very fascinating. And then we have a direct Mexico tribe, or just a Mexican population, probably similar to like a mestizo. This right here is going to be, the Nahua is probably a beyond mestizo. It's probably nearly a full-blooded, 70 to 80% at least Native American. And then this is probably 50-50. This is like a mestizo from Mexico. Then the Mayan, that would further indicate a Mexican connection. Yavapai, that'd be southwestern U.S. from Arizona. And you can see the European influence mixed in there. France, Dutch, France, Italy. And so almost like a Mediterranean type influence from the conquistadors again, as we talked about. Then you can see Chippewa, almost in the same percentage, in the same standing ranking percentage-wise as when we ran it at 15 STRs. So you can see we start getting this white influence, this European influence down here. And it's located in approximately the same place in proportion to one another. So very fascinating results. I sure hope you've enjoyed this. I'm going to make more videos coming up in the future because I want to share some of this research with you guys. But again, it's been great speaking with you today, and I hope you all have enjoyed this. Have a great day.